programming our own learning spaces, making sense of emerging no-code tools in online teaching and learning spaces. And the presenters are Mr. Patrick Desloge, Ms. Cindy Liang, and Mr. Nicholas Mo from the University of Hong Kong. Mr. Desloge is a senior lecturer at the Center for Applied English Studies at Hong Kong U. As the digital literacy support coordinator, he works with students and alongside teachers to integrate technology into the curriculum. Ms. Liang is an instructional design assistant at the Technology Enriched Learning Initiative at Hong Kong U. She designs and implements technology-supported solutions to cater for diverse teaching and learning environments. Mr. Mo is a final year education student who has recently designed a learning management system for a large undergraduate course at Hong Kong U. Mr. Desloge, Ms. Liang, and Mr. Mo, please.
Patrick, would you unmute yourself?
There we go. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thanks.
Great. Thanks, Nicholas. Okay, as I said, my name is Patrick, and I'm going to just talk for 5 minutes, and then I'll turn you over to Nicholas and Cindy for the real meat of the presentation. I want to begin today just by talking about low code, no code, and what that is. And I'll also explain a little bit about Notion, which is the platform or the tool that we're using to illustrate one potential application or one potential kind of illustration of what we mean by low code, no code. And then Nicholas is going to talk about his work in an undergraduate course, and Cindy will show a full-on app that we've been working on together with the Faculty of Architecture using these tools. So firstly, what is low code, no code? Once you're kind of tuned into this term, as you start to read a lot about app development in the commercial world, you'll really start to hear a lot about low code, no code. And essentially what this means is that the app development environment has changed quite a lot in the last kind of 5 or 10 years. And we've moved away from a model where we need to have programmers making everything for us to a model where, with a little bit of technical programming knowledge or a little bit of understanding about how programs work, today one can actually build full-on apps without having any real programming knowledge. The illustration that I've showed here, this is just a really simple sort of automation that I've created at one point. And to be honest, I don't remember exactly what this one does. I think it's kind of synchronizing calendars, and it's notifying people when appointments show up in calendars. But you can see that this kind of app that I've got illustrated on this screen is very visual. And it works whereby instead of kind of sitting and writing code, I can just click on the module within this particular platform, and then I can enter the variables and kind of tell it, this is what I want it to do. So it's a situation where you can actually develop an app without knowing how to program, or rather without knowing how to code. So you do have to have understanding of programming, but not coding. Now, part of the reason why these apps are becoming so popular and this low code, no code technology is taking off is because of something called APIs. And what an API is that it really is, it's a sort of backdoor into various software platforms. So if you use, people have talked about Microsoft Teams, and we are using Zoom, or if you're using something like Google Docs, all of these are platforms which have APIs on the back end. So if, for example, I had done some work in Teams and I wanted that work that I've done in Teams to be transferred over to Google Docs, I could, through an API, get these two applications to begin to speak to each other. And so it's this really sort of exciting technology where applications can start to interact with other applications. And again, this is one of the factors that's really starting to change the development environment. And the evolution of low-code, no-code tools, as well as APIs, is leading to what's called frequently now citizen developers. And a citizen developer is a person working in a job, and that individual is not a programmer or not an app developer, but they can make an app that will serve some special function that that individual needs to do. So for example, in the course that I teach, if my students are teaching workshops, which is what we do, in the end, when I want to issue certificates, I want to make sure that I get feedback from the workshop participants. And then once they give me the feedback, I want it to check and make sure that they are who they say they are and send them the certificate. So it's a kind of certificate generation app. Something like this would allow that to happen quite quickly. That's an example of a sort of low-code, no-code app. So I think this has a huge impact on us as educators because, firstly, students need to learn these skills to be a sort of citizen developer, and we need to figure out kind of who's going to teach that and how are we going to do that. I also think that low-code, no-code tools are becoming part of our learning environment, and that's something that both Cindy and Nicholas are going to talk about in just a second. And teachers and students need to increasingly be able to collaborate on these tools, customize their learning environments. So rather than using Moodle, you might be able to kind of develop your own learning management system and create new learning spaces. So I think the impact to teaching and learning is huge. Today, we're going to illustrate this through an application called Notion. Some of you may be familiar with Notion already. It's become hugely popular recently, and increasingly we're getting students who are coming in and they have some awareness of Notion. Just so you know, Notion is a relational database and a wiki. It's a tool that Nicholas and Cindy are both going to illustrate what it can do. So I won't go too deeply into it, except to say that it is a tool that uses APIs to interact with other applications. So if you're using Notion, all of your databases in Notion can synchronize with other things. So the last thing I'll say is that on our side, and the project that Nicholas and Cindy and I are currently collaborating on, is a personal knowledge management for academic success learning experience. This is a 1-credit learning experience. It's teaching students these skills that they need to make low-code, no-code apps. This is being done in collaboration between CAS TELI, which is the Technology Enhanced Learning Initiative, and that's where Cindy's from, our library, our Common Core, and also some faculties. So that's kind of a bit about our background, where we're coming from. I'm going to turn over to Nicholas. I think I've gone about a minute over time, so I apologize for that, Nicholas. And show us some of the exciting stuff you've got, Nick.
Thanks, Patrick. So let me share my screen first. All right, so once again, I'm Nicholas from HKU, and I've been working with Patrick and Cindy for quite a while on Notion already. Now, just now, Patrick mentioned like our next year's plan on personal knowledge management, but there are in fact more dimensions to local no-code tools like Notion, one of which is more like an app development. So app development traditionally refers to software engineers writing lines of code to produce maybe web apps using Python, or maybe some mobile apps, or even desktop apps, or even writing codes on Linux, because that's what the server or the database requires them to do so. But traditional app development has quite a few problems when it crosses over with education. The biggest one being that every teacher has their own style and approach to teaching that is unique and in fact very difficult, if not impossible, to replicate. So when software developers, they know little about pedagogies, and when teachers, they usually tend to know little about technology, the result is that traditional ed techs become very general. So it's kind of like the one-size-fits-all software is rarely able to meet the pedagogic needs of teachers until local no-code softwares like Notion is born. So last semester, I used Notion to produce a learning management system for an undergraduate common core course at HKU with about 50 students in the class. I believe Notion is one of the examples of the many ways forward in education in which teacher can finally have a say on the technology they use. And this is the Notion site I made for the course. On the left side, you can see there's kind of like a navigation bar showing all the Zoom meeting IDs and passwords here. And then also some extra resources for students just to help them attend the lectures and tutorials and to help them to complete the assignments. On the right side, there's a database containing some of the announcements and another one containing their tutorial schedules. So just by looking at this landing page, the flexibility of Notion has indeed given teachers the role of an UI designer. So instead of sticking to an existing software's layout and structure, such as Moodle, which is what we usually use in HKU and Google Classroom, teachers can in fact customize their own learning management system to suit their courses and assessments. So let's look at one of the assessments of this course as an example. So let's look at this course journal. So the course journal is one that requires students to record their biohacking techniques because this course is related to biohacking. So recording their biohacking patterns on a daily basis across the 12 weeks of the lecture period. In the past, if this were to be done on Moodle, which is actually used default learning management system, students might be actually typing some text to their own forum posts every day. But since students are using Notion now, the format of their submissions is in fact greatly diversified. So for example, let's look at some of the examples. Maybe look at Ethan. So if we look at Ethan's journal submission, we can see that, well, maybe Ethan, okay, so Ethan is giving us some screen caps and some text every day as his journal. And if we look at another one, maybe Abby. So if we look at Abby's journal, so Abby's got this little cute hair. So she's showing us her cleansing products and how she dyed her hair kind of like every week. So this assignment is very authentic and pedagogically sound, well, only because Notion has perfectly blended into students' lives. Whether students need the web version of the desktop app to revise for midterms, or they need the mobile app to record their biohacking patterns on the go, they actually have everything they need. So teachers don't even need to learn about the concept of breakpoint, which we traditionally use in designing websites, but they are already empowered to produce their own learning management system to support their unique learning activities. Of course, Notion is way more than having teachers to customize the layout of their own site. In fact, through the API, Notion can talk to a lot of other different softwares, and that's what makes powerful. That's what makes Notion powerful yet easy. So I'm going to take this announcements database as an example. Here we can see two entries of the announcements, one on course assessments and the other on the course journal deadline. But if we look at the complete database here, so there are actually more entries, just that they were set to hidden. So students are not, so they're not shown on the landing page. So back to the landing page, when the teacher or the course TA, the teaching assistant, if they need to make an announcement, they can simply like add a new entry and type the title here, type the message here, and then they can select the status to ready. So once they select the status to ready, a third-party automation service, we usually call it Integromat, it will actually use Notion's API to pass the message into the class Discord group, and everyone's mobile phone will get a notification. So in software development terms, the automation service functions like an event listener, listening for the status of new entries. But now taking a step back, I've just completed something that traditionally requires extensive knowledge on coding and days or maybe even weeks of work from a software developer. But with Notion, we're talking about minutes and absolutely zero knowledge on coding, but just concepts of technology that aren't very difficult to be understood. So if teachers prefer, they can also connect Notion to maybe Gmail to send out personalized emails, or to archive the course documents on Notion to Dropbox, just to name a few examples, or in a few clicks without having to code. So this is Notion, and this is one of the low-code, no-code examples, and this should be the future. So thank you, everyone. I'll now pass the time to Cindy.
Thank you. Hi, this is Cindy, and I'm an instructional designer from Tally. Tally is an e-learning support center, And I'm going to further introduce local no-code development for Hong Kong UTNL from the instructional design perspective. Okay, here comes the case 2. It is an e-space, which is called Digital Arboretum. And it is this e-space co-developed by DLA, Tele, and Digital Literacy Lab of CAES and Hong Kong U. And it is for several courses to be used in the Department of Landscape Architecture. And the features of this e-space, there are like, first of all, it is a collaborative learning space, just like the designs Nicholas just showed us. And another way is like it is also an all-in-one hub to integrate digital resources. So before we design and develop the tool or the applications, we need to analyze what we have based on previous designs to get to know more about our real teaching and learning needs. So based on the previous designs, I want to think of like what do we want to achieve? Here comes 3 key issues that we like to consider when we try to design and develop the applications. The first is to try to link different databases. So in this project, we have a plan list, which includes different sheets for different plans, informations, and then we have a bunch of videos, which is previously based on and stored in the OneDrive. And then we have a Facebook workplace to support online communications. So we also need these functions. And then we will want to stable learning space that enables students collaborations or student-teachers collaborations. And then eventually, or hopefully this year, we want to create a shareable site so that we can share the informations with the public. So with these TNL needs, we have start to build up those no-code learning space. So from sheets to Notion pages. And as you can see, we try to use the database concept in Notions. We enable multi-select with those tags, colorful tags, and we use filters and sort out to differentiate and define different pages or different sheets. And then here, like how we from video files to Notion database. So again, we use the database to store out those informations, and then we enable multi-selections and use the filters and sortouts. Besides, we also try to upload all the videos to the YouTube channels, and then we try to connect these YouTube video links into this database. And the third one, from Facebook Workplace to Dialogues. So all the communication can be done based on Notions, and you can see we have the view history so that the teachers can visualize students' learning progress, and also students, they can interact and communicate with peers on the Notion pages. Just simply create a comment and reply to your friends, and we can also add someone. Okay, so here comes the workflows to visualize the integration based on the Notion Hub. As you can see, we have those functions for internal use, and we also have one more thing is like to create the public sites. But within the internal use, these are done within the no-code environments. For example, look at those yellow tags, the digital contents we would like to build up for students. For example, we have student workspace for different classrooms, and we think that we realize this like the Notion pages and Google Maps, and also we will have video database, which is supported by YouTube, and then species database, which is also supported by the Notion pages. And then we try to integrate these materials or integrate these digital resources into the Notion. And then we try to use the API things or the automation, and also or we manually update each month. We try to synthesize the Notion database to the Wix sites so that we can present the content and try to share the information with the public. Okay, so based on this, I'm going to show you like how we transit from no-code learning space to the local website development. when we try to create a public site, we try to see like what functions we would like to use. For example, the advanced search or the search and box functions, which is not supported by Notions. Then we try to do the tool testing, and finally we decided to use the website to build up the public website. And then you can see it's just like the web pages, the normal web pages, but here you can see the table view and gallery views. This is how we present the species database, and this is based on the Notion Hub. In other words, we create those informations in the Notion Hub without any coding required, and then we use the automation tools or the, for example, like the Zapier to connect those database and then to present it into this website. Here's another example of the local development, and here's another page, web page, a plant database. We also include the searching bar and advanced search. So basically the visitors or the audiences, they can search those plant informations by typing the keywords or to select those different items from different categories. So here's another page, the video page, and this is more visual than the visitors. If they search for any keywords, they can see that they can go directly to the YouTube videos. And once we click on the YouTube videos, we can get those plant informations, which is from another database. As the website is still developing, so I'm not able to share you with the link, but you're so welcome to follow us on social medias. So stay tuned, and the website is hopefully coming out within next month. Okay, so here's 2 Hong Kong U practices of local no-code development, but I would like to remind you it's a team collaborations, which means these code developed projects involve instructional designers developed from and also we teachers, teaching and TAs, and also student peer consultants from DLL. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us, or if you have any questions, you can also ask right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have any questions here?
Okay, so if
may I just ask a quick question?
Please,
if you don't mind. Yes, I was really intrigued by the use of Notion for developing more like a personalized LMS, like a teacher can do it him or herself, and I could already imagine different things I'd like to do with that. So just very basic question, is it free? And the second question, have your teachers tried using it? I know in your case it was Nicholas who created it.
Yep.
But have you had teachers actually doing it? And what was the feedback if teachers have tried that?
It's a good question, thanks. It is free. You can get a kind of academic license, which gives you unlimited storage for free. We have a paid license just so we can share a little bit more, but it can be free. We have right now just a couple of teachers who are sort of championing the use of Notion. So there are other teachers around who have been doing it. I would say that in general, when we look at teachers, it's those teachers who are a little bit more adventurous or a little bit more technically savvy who are kind of moving into that space first. I wouldn't say that Notion is a highly technical or terribly difficult app to use, but it does require a good foundation of technical understanding. So you need to know what is a relational database in order to work with relational databases, for example. But we have had a few people across campus who have started to pick it up, but not broadly. And I wouldn't suggest that we could replace Notion. I wouldn't suggest that we could replace Moodle with something like Notion in the foreseeable future for the majority of teachers. But for those who are keen about technology, once you do it, you can't go back.